Hi, welcome everyone to our Perception versus Reality event tonight. We're so excited to bring together different members of Pensacola Young Professionals to talk about our 2020 Quality of Life Survey, what our results were, and what we will see in the future. So tonight is going to be a really a great discussion, we hope, with different members of the community to talk about what they see in our quality of life survey results and what parts of the survey made them proud to be a Pensacolian, and kind of especially for those who might have grown up here, how it has affected why they made Pensacola the place to come back to. So I wanted to introduce some of you to our quality of life survey if you're not familiar with it already. So our quality of life survey has been a project that the community has done for the last 11 years, thankfully funded by Quentin Rishi-Studer and conducted by Mason-Dixon Polling, an independent polling group out of Washington, D.C. We have been doing the survey since 2008 with almost every question, about 44 of them asked every single year. Some of them we've added over time as we've kind of gotten a pulse on what the community wants to know. And every year we add new questions that either stay for just that year or become part of the larger survey. So people were surveyed at random from the Florida voter registration files, and the Mason-Dixon polling group cold calls members of this group until it reflects the demographics of the voting population. And with that, we can say that we have less than a 5% margin of error, meaning if you were to survey every single member of Escambia County, that result would be within 5% of the results you'll see here presented tonight. So we're really excited to be able to bring this data to you and look at it. And so with that, I'd like to bring up our panelists that are going to be joining me tonight. We have members of the Pensacola Young Professionals community of all different backgrounds, including Kyle Schoolar, pardon me, Kevin Parekh, Ebony Cornish, and Megan Rich. So Kyle is the Community Engagement and Advocacy Manager at Feeding the Gulf Coast. In this role, he is responsible for development and marketing efforts, particularly in the Florida Panhandle area, and he coordinates advocacy efforts across the tri-state service area. He also has had 10 years of community engagement experience and is past chair of Santa Rosa Young Professionals and a member of a lot of different local organizations and boards. And he was actually recognized by the Santa Rosa Chamber of Commerce as the Emerging Leader of the Year for 2017 and Young Professional of the Year for 2021 at the Gulf Breeze Chamber. We also have Dr. Kevin Parekh. He grew up in Pensacola, Florida, and attended Pensacola High School Health Academy and was an Eagle Scout at St. Luke's. He studied microbiology at the University of Florida, and in 2012 graduated from the University of Florida College of Dentistry, and he now owns Landmark Dental Care, as well as a nonprofit dental service programs for veterans called No Smile Left Behind. We also are joined tonight by Ebony Cornish. She earned her Bachelor's of Science from the University of South Alabama in the spring of 2015 and her Master's of Science in Healthcare Administration from the University of West Florida in spring 2017. Ebony is a lead healthcare recruiter with Maxim Healthcare Group and currently serves on the board of directors for Pensacola Young Professionals as secretary and is slated to be our president-elect position starting in April. And then last but not least, Meg Rich. She is a project manager with Penn Air Federal Credit Union here in Pensacola. She's originally from Southwest Kansas, but relocated to Pensacola in 2010. She's been active with several organizations during her time in Pensacola and was president of PYP in 2017 to 2018, and is the current president of the League of Southeastern Credit Unions Young Professionals Group. She also co-hosts the More Than a Young Professionals podcast and was a member of the Leadership Pensacola class of 2020. When not working, she loves to spend time with her partner, Ben, and their two adorable dogs. And then, like I said, my name is Claire Kircharr. I am our Vice President for Quality of Life at Pensacola Young Professionals. So I help coordinate volunteer efforts and the Quality of Life survey we've done over time. And I also am the Director of Fetal Infant Mortality Programs for Healthy Start. So welcome, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm very excited to get into conversation with you guys and hear your thoughts on the survey. But I also want to first get into for people who might not be familiar with the data, what it says overall. So for those who don't know, all of our data is available at PensacolaYP.com. You can see both a summary report of this data, but also the raw data disaggregated by every type of demographic you can imagine. But looking first at one of the questions we ask is, what are people's thoughts on quality of life in the Pensacola area? And what we saw was that it was overwhelmingly positive. As you can see here, about a third of the population said they believe that we have either good or excellent quality of life. They were asked it on a 5-point scale. They could say it was excellent, it was good, it was fair, or poor. And some people could just say they don't know. And like I said, one of the great things about this survey is we've been able to watch it over time. And the great news is with this question, it's something we've seen improve every single year and continuously get better. We also ask things about, are things headed in the right direction or wrong direction? And again, we look at this for both the city of Pensacola, but also Escambia County. And it's, again, one of those things that over time we've been able to improve our scores. But at this point, we're kind of hanging steady that things are headed in the right track, which is a good place to be. And so the final data point I want to present to you all tonight before we start getting the opinions of our young professionals here is something that's going to be, I'm sure, very close to every one of their thoughts of something they looked at, is how does Pensacola rate as a place to live for young professionals, young single people? And so we also asked this question looking at families, for senior citizens, and that kind of thing. But with this question, it's one of the indicators we've improved on the most over time. As you can see here, when we first started this survey back in 2008, 2009, we had a heavy percentage of respondents who said it was not a great place to live. And, you know, the downside of this survey, and the reason we do events like this, is we don't get a chance to hear from people, well, why? It's quantitative. We're just looking at those numbers. And so by doing something like this, we can really dive into what are people's opinions. If we had done this in 2009, I'm sure the panelists we have here tonight would have opinions on why, I'm here, but I can see why others might not be. But the good news is we've continued to improve over time. And as you see, that number has, negative number has gone down. Now, we unfortunately still are more in the negative than the positive. And so that's something we really want to hear from our panelists tonight as well, is why do you choose to be here? What are the things that make you say, I don't necessarily believe in that number. I, as a young person, have chosen to begin my career here and might want to stay here and continue it. So we're really excited to get into it. So everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So, all right. So my first question, like I said, open conversation of really kind of what were your overall thoughts on the survey? Were there things that really stood out to you guys as things about what it said?
Well, I guess I can start. One of the things that I was most impressed with the survey overall is the job security, even with the 2020 year, as we spoke to briefly before. Right now, just with my small business in Pensacola, it's near impossible to hire anybody. Put out ads on Craigslist, put something on Facebook, or go to Indeed or whatnot. It is very difficult to find qualified candidates for even very simple jobs. So I've had to be resourceful, do more work myself, or even pull students from UWF, externs, if you will, and pay them for a job. So that's a very positive sign. It's obviously not good for me and my small business, but it's really a good sign for Pensacola overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll chime in and say the report was very eye-opening. It shows how far we've come, but how much further we have to go. The conversations and the surveys we're having now is what we need. It's what we need as far as the Pensacola community and what we need to be doing as Pensacola young professionals.
Absolutely.
Ebony, I agree. I like to see that we're trending in the right direction. I think that 2020 kind of threw us all for a curve, and so to see that we have had growth between 2019 and 2020 over a lot of those data points has been really positive for me. Early childhood education has been really big. It's been a hot button issue for us in Pensacola for a long time, and to see that actually going up and to see the efforts that we've put in, 4 or 5 years ago actually making a difference has been really, really good. I like that.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, just echo kind of what everyone said. After a year like 2020, you get a little nervous to know if the bottom has completely fallen out of all of the progress that we've been into over the years. And it's good to see that there was some stabilization there. Obviously, we still have a long way to go in certain areas, but I think that's the thing that gave me kind of the most joy, just that the bottom didn't fall out, that we are still trending, in the right direction. We do still have a lot of areas in which we need to improve.
Yeah, and so kind of going back to what Kevin was talking about a little bit, with most of you guys being involved either in the business community or the nonprofit, how do you guys have seen 2020 affect that job security? What do you think the results of that our survey listed, showing that for the most people do feel secure? We had an overwhelming number of people say that in the next 5 years, they're not worried about their job security or the security of others. And so what do you think is it about Pensacola or about this year that has made people have that confidence in what you guys are seeing out in the world right now? I'm going off script with that question.
I think that a lot of companies have realized that people can do their jobs from anywhere. And a lot of people have taken that remote working and really embraced it. And so being able to still have your job by not having to leave your house has been really great. I also feel that a lot of companies want us here. We are thriving. We're a good area. And
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of really great attributes here, including the beach and just a really great downtown. And so I think that knowing that we can keep our jobs while staying in the place that we love, but also people can relocate here, has been really, really eye-opening for me. That I have friends who want to move here now. And I say, come on down, leave the cold in Kansas.
All right. So kind of related to that point, Meg, so what made you proud of Pensacola? What were those really standout points that you guys saw that made you either proud of Pensacola or really kind of was like, this is why I'm here right now, is because this is the type of community I want to be in?
I think that overall, just seeing things trending up. I moved here in 2010, so we started the survey in 2009, and I've seen that trajectory not only in the data points, but myself. When I moved here in 2010, downtown was just starting to get revitalized, and it wasn't a bad place to be. I didn't think so, at least, but it wasn't a place where I spent a lot of my time. And 5 years later, I was living downtown, and I wanted to be in the heart of it all. And so, I just seeing the progress and seeing people take data to heart and understand that we can move the needle forward in anything that we want. We can take all of these data points and we can choose and make an educated decision on where we want to focus our time and energy to move that needle forward to get us to the premier place to live, work, and play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll echo what Meg said. I mean, the progress downtown and us really working to build, a really strong and great community is astounding, and I'm excited to see that continue on. Another thing that stuck out to me was people's perception of hurricane response. On top of a really tough year with COVID-19 and everything else, then to have such an active hurricane season, and us being so affected by Hurricane Sally, to see what people looked favorably upon our community's response to the hurricane. That was something to be proud of, that we were able to rally together in a community during a really tough year and work to recover from Hurricane Sally.
Absolutely. That was, one of those questions we got to add on, I think was really good and has been something we can say, give a pat on our back to our local officials for how, they've been able to approach it.
Yeah. And going back to what we were talking about as far as the job security and stability, the question about that on the report, as I stated before, it shows that our economy is moving in the right direction, but it also shows that there still are some individuals who do struggle with job stability and security and need more of our support. And I'm proud that PYP can be a resource in this area, and I'm interested in being of assistance to our community, especially young professionals through our professional development aspect.
Absolutely. Kevin, was there any point that made you particularly proud, especially as, you know, you're one of us that grew up here, and that, similar to Meg, you know, have watched it change over time?
Yeah, so of course, downtown, it blew me away. So I moved away basically to go to college, and then I was in the Navy for a long time. And then when I came back in 2018 or 2019 and seeing downtown, I was confused, to say the least. So I was astonished at the development. And surprisingly, when I left in 2008, I was actually against the whole stadium, Wahoo Stadium. But now seeing it, how active and vibrant and wonderful it is, I feel silly that I was against it back then. It's just astonishing to see. And then moving on to the hurricane response, I was just astonished at how well that worked out with just the communication from Gulf Power, you know, having power outages, how quickly they handle that, and how professionally and how quickly. It was just wonderful. And then the trash pickup, it was almost seamless. It seemed after a week or two, it was just like, okay, there's just piles of stuff, but it's getting picked up and there's activity. So that was wonderful. And then the communication with the mayor is really great too. I listen to NPR almost every morning, and it seems like there's every Mayor Robbins is always actively responding to something or moving forward and talking about issues. And not that I'm in politics at all, but I just listen to it, and it's nice to hear that there's someone thinking about our local stuff, not listening to national politics all the time, actually listening to issues that do affect us as citizens of Pensacola. That is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Mayor Robinson had a 3-point increase this year, so I think he was probably happy to see that as well. You know, I grew up here my whole life, and I honestly didn't really ever expect to move back here. I went away for school, and when a job opportunity came for me, as I was finishing up the school, I was like, okay, well, maybe this will be a stopping point for me. I thought it might be just kind of a stepping stone, but the longer I've been back, the more it's like, maybe this isn't a stepping stone place anymore, that, you know, I might have envisioned it to be even high school or college. And it really has to do with that growth. And one of those points, again, that made me proud was also, again, you know, we looked at, you know, we just demonstrated that for young people. But one of the other ones we asked was, how would you rate it for families with children? And that is another one where we've seen a vast improvement over time. And with this one, we have jumped from being more in the negative to more in the positive. And we had 57% of respondents said that we were an excellent or good place for families with children. And, you know, for all of us as young professionals, a lot of us will be moving in. That's our next stage, is to have our own families, whatever that looks like, including our pups families. Those count too, all our dogs and cats. And so the fact that I think that really kind of holds to the idea of retention is that, again, this isn't just a stepping stone place for young professionals, is that this is a place where we're seeing ourselves want to stay long-term and think about our future with. So my next question for any of you guys is, what point disappointed you? Was there a question that you were really sad to see we were either in the negative, or that you really think this is what we need to work on?
Well, I think
I'll start by saying, oh, go ahead.
I think you take it. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing that stood out to me was the race relations regarding county and city police officers. There was a higher rate of those for race relations. It was more negative interactions with county and city police officers with Blacks than there are with whites or any of the other races. Of course, you know, there are ways that I think PYP can work towards, you know, helping that relationship improve by having open dialogues. You know, PYP, you know, could host an event for the community based on interactions between law enforcement and community members, maybe question and answer format, bringing in the mayor and commissioner or county administrator to see what they're doing to make these relationships better, and even in bringing in members of the new police task force that we have here. But I will say that, being an African American, especially as a part of PYP, that disappointed me to see that there is a division with races of more negative experiences with Blacks and police officers than there are with any other races.
Absolutely. I think that you kind of hit it, is that with all of our race relation questions, is that while the majority, for the most part, did have a consensus, is that what with all of them you saw is that Black members of the community felt them so much more intensely and
right.
how they felt about it. And that was something that was really, I think, important to recognize, is that the lived experience of our respondents and what, that quality of life is so different for everyone. And it's highlights the importance of, we can't just look at that overall, which of course, that's what we're doing tonight a little bit because of just, for time's sake. But with all of them, I encourage you, is you can look at every single question by race. And you find often some stark things, is it's not just race relations where there might be a more intense feeling negatively. And that's disappointing. And if we're not working towards the quality of life improvement for everyone, then we're not doing our job. And what's the point? So it's a really great point, Ebony, and thank you for sharing.
No problem. Thank you.
The other thing that obviously the race relations was poor, and that was shocking to me. But the schools, having better schools in Pensacola has always been a subject since I was a child over here, focusing on that. And I don't have a solution for that per se. It was something that I was just concerned about. I mean, I was happy to see that the respondents thought the school board was doing a good job, but when you look at overall the schools, there was concern for its well-being. And then the other 2 points that I think I wrote down over here was just young people just don't feel satisfied with Pensacola, and then the housing cost, affordable housing in Pensacola. But that's more related just to labor and cost of materials right now, which it's a double-edged sword. You want people to get paid well, but then you don't have high housing costs.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I will put a plug with that, Kevin, because that was a point that was one of mine that I think disappointed me, is that will be one of our future PYP events, because affordable housing, I think, is out of all the things we've surveyed since 2008, one of the topics that almost has not moved the dial at all. A lot of them, as we said, have thankfully shown improvement, but with affordable housing and what that kind of people's opinions on if that's available has not moved almost at all since 2008. And that's just very, not a good thing for a lot of different groups of people. And so we're going to be doing a town hall on that coming up on March 15th with members of nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity and AMR, but as well as the city and stuff, to identify really looking at not only what are the solutions to affordable housing, but also how can we recognize those other social determinants that feed into that housing? Is that it's not just, as you said, about how much someone makes, but also all those other determinants of their quality of life that affect if they have the ability to access affordable housing and if the community can provide it. So we're really excited to be able to dive into that one a little deeper and hear what might be behind some of these results a little more.
Yeah, Ebony and Kevin, you guys both hit kind of my also notes for this question. I was really disappointed, but not really surprised about the race relations responses. There's a lot of work to be done there. And Ebony, you hit the nail on the head of these, knowing that data and knowing those responses in an unbiased situation allows us to have those conversations in a safe space so that we can improve upon those. And so in 3, 5, 10 years from now, that's going to be a very different thing, just as overall satisfaction for quality of life for us 10 years ago was. So we can keep moving that needle forward by knowing what that data is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, and I agree with what everyone said. Obviously, race relations was something that stood out to me as well. And speaking to lived experience and how important that is in facilitating these conversations. And sometimes we can get so bogged down and get so overwhelmed with these issues that affect our community. Like affordable housing. Like improving race relations. And so you can stall out at times. And you're like, well, I don't know exactly what I can do. But I love what Ebony said about something that PYP can easily do is facilitate these conversations and to get the ball moving as to how we can come up with solutions to make these improvements with our community. So I echo what everyone else has said.
I think it says something, the fact that we all are saying, yeah, I'm echoing what you said. Yeah, I'm echoing what you said, because it really kind of indicates that there are very key issues, and that sometimes I think there's an issue with when you want to change your community, not knowing where to start. And so this survey, one, gives us that opportunity to kind of recognize, take a pulse on where the community is. But then by having conversations like this, is we can narrow down out of these 44 questions, what are the things that at least our portion of the community is really caring about. And we've got in this group all, ages and backgrounds, which is why you were chosen to talk, is because I know you all have such great perspectives from a very different place. But we all see the same issues. And so that I think really allows us to, as a community, figure out these are where our resources should consider looking in terms of what changes need to be made. This is what might be a priority for us, with as many people saying it. And so I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. If you were taking this survey, what would your rating for overall quality of life be? And so participants were, if you were cold called, you were basically asked to rate it on what's called a Likert scale. As I kind of spoke to it earlier, that we have excellent quality of life, we have good quality of life, we have fair quality of life, poor quality of life, or you're not sure. And then follow up to that, do you think it's going to stay the same? Is it going to improve, or is it going to deteriorate in the next 5 years? So how would you answer if I was cold calling you from Mason-Dixon today?
Go ahead.
So I would say my answer would be positive. It would be between good and fair. And as far as whether or not it will improve, stay the same, or deteriorate in the next 5 years, I believe it will improve, because we don't have a choice but to improve and get better, especially with there being more of an emphasis on social justice, better economy, equal rights. The more, we're educated more as the years go on, technology is advancing. I just don't see it being anything else other than improvement.
I like that optimism.
Yeah.
Overall, I think Pensacola is doing pretty good right now. So I'd pick good. I wouldn't pick excellent, but just looking from the technology standpoint, I grew up in Cantonment, which is, this Escambia County, and it's always kind of been Hickville when I was younger. But now when I drive around just this part of town on 9 Mile, looking at the number of electric cars, the Teslas, and then seeing how many solar roofs that we have over here shows a positive movement economically, and then people are aware of the global issues that we're dealing with. So I'm really impressed with Pensacola as a whole in that sense. And as for the race issues, it's one of those deep-seated problems, though, that I am concerned about it as well. And just speaking to some patients and their past traumas over here, it's something that I am concerned about. But hopefully, over time, as we keep moving forward and step by step, I think it'll improve.
Absolutely.
I would definitely. I keep copying Ebony for sure, but I'm definitely between good and fair. Maybe more so on the good side, just because I'm an optimist, right? I believe that, as people have spoken, that I've grown up here, I've been here for a long time. I've only been here for 5 years, and just to see the improvement in just 5 years. If you back that up, 2008, 2010, there are people in this community who really care about making this the best place to live, work, and play, and we're seeing the fruits of those investments. And I'm so excited to be a part of a community and part of an organization like PYP, where it's a bunch of people who want to make this, to continue on and build on that work, and also do better and better. Like we said, so I would say pretty good. We got a long way to go in certain areas, but I'm excited to be able to do this work with these amazing people at PYP and other people in the community as well.
Yeah, Kyle, Ebony, Kevin, I agree. I think we're good. With that little asterisk of we can always improve, and our level of good now is going to be, it could be fair in 10 years, and we want to keep getting better and better. And as Kyle said, we have the people in the community who want to put in the work, because it is work. It is work to make a community a place that you want to stay and that you want to move to and you want to be in and you want to be proud that you're a member of. And everyone in the community, to get them to feel like that is work. And you know, I along with Kyle, am very proud to be among my peers and those who tread the path before me and those who are coming behind me to do that hard work to make it a really, really great place.
Yeah. And I think you know, personally, I put myself in that good range as well. And the optimist in me would like to be like Ebony and say, I think we're going to improve, but I worry we will stay the same a little bit. I'm just being honest, because I think it's something that one of the things the survey showed us is that in a lot of areas we've improved, we're kind of staying the same from what we were last year. And I think, you know, you could say in light of 2020, that's a good thing, because it shows that, you know, we didn't get knocked down too much. But I worry that we've hit a point of kind of resting on our laurels of look at how great we've done the last all these years. Because as you said, it is so much better than it was 5-10 years ago. And we may have just kind of left the bar where it is. And then if we just continue to leave the bar where it is, that's when I think, Meg, what you said, is we'll start, that good becomes fair and the fair becomes poor and on and on. So I hope it will improve. And like I said, it's groups like this that make me feel it will. And it's why I get involved with this. And I don't think it's just young professionals that I think, you know, there are so many other members of the community at the business leader, a little older than us and that kind of thing, that I think are motivated by the community in general. So it's just really exciting to see that I think the community has woken up a little bit with all the improvements we've made in the last few years, that there is that kind of ability to continue growing and growing. And Meg, it'll be interesting to see, as you said, of your friends that are wanting to move down here working remotely. I've seen the same thing. Or friends from high school that have moved back home for the pandemic and are like, oh, okay, I'm not stuck in Pensacola because I got kicked out of, you know, wherever I was. And so I think that could also be a really interesting shift we see in society is, do we have more people that, because of all our great amenities, so to speak, with, you know, the beach and that kind of thing, does that attract people to that remote life, and then they get invested in the community the same way we've become invested? So that'll be, I think, interesting to watch over time. All right. And so one of the things we looked at, as we've all kind of discussed today, was race relations. And so this was the kind of additional questions we asked this year that we've never asked before, but they were really critical and gave us some really eye-opening answers. And so we asked about 5 questions. And again, you'll be, anyone can go see these questions and the data behind them at PensacolaYP.com. And with that data, we looked at race relations as a whole. We looked at race relation between police in Escambia County in the city of Pensacola. We looked at what were people's thoughts on equal opportunity versus equal outcome in terms of where should local officials be putting efforts towards. Do we want to see said equal outcome or equal opportunities for people? And then do they believe systematic racism is an issue? Looking at those hierarchies that are embedded in society. Are those hierarchies existing in our area? And so we felt these were really important to look at. And so one thing we also did that I think it's critical to note is we made sure to oversample on these questions. We know, like I said, it's the benefit of using such a large group like Mason-Dixon that all of our data is statistically significant. Like I said, we have a very low margin of error, but we wanted to make sure that the community was well represented when we asked these questions. And so there was 161 Black voters who were called that were only asked questions about race relations. They were not asked the full Monty of the survey. That allowed those questions to be oversampled and made sure that we were having that voice well represented without skewing the data, as some people might think. So I just want to add that point of that we know this data is truly representative of what we're seeing in the community. And even in the short time since we've launched this survey, I think it's only been a month, we've really started to see it grab people's attentions. We did a CivicCon with Quint Studer about it looking at some of the issues. The city of Pensacola has been given the data as they look for the new chief of police. And I think we saw today that they're looking at doing a similar survey as well with a larger percentage of the community in that search as well. So I think it was really important we looked at these questions, and it was that critical time in our society. So I want to know from you guys, why do you think it was important for Pensacola young professionals to discuss race this year? And looking for honesty, if it wasn't important, why not? Why shouldn't we have asked it? So we take all sides and want to hear all opinions.
Well, I think that it's important because we've used the quality of life survey, and lots of people in the community use the data points of the quality of life survey as they start to talk in their businesses and in their daily lives. And so asking to be representative of our entire community is the exact right thing to do. And that gives us a starting point to have these safe spaces, to have these conversations, because you can't make something better if you're not measuring it. And we're measuring it. And now we need to decide what we need to do to make it better. And I think that PYP has been really instrumental in the past, and even the recent past, of getting people to the table and having those conversations so that we can formulate plans to move forward and to make things better.
Absolutely.
Just going, based off of what Meg just stated also, and, we all know that there have been an emphasis on social justice and civil rights movements this past year, in 2020 especially, with George Floyd, protests all throughout globally, protests here in our own town, Graffiti Bridge. And speaking of the bridge, a lot of those people at the bridge that were protesting each day were young people, youth. A lot of them were. But on top of that, that was important for us to, to make sure that we recognize for our own community in Pensacola, but also the fact that PYP, Pensacola Young Professionals, is supposed to be bringing young professionals together and bringing them in and cultivating us. But however, we're not diverse. I believe that, we need to recruit more diverse members. We need to recruit more LGBTQ, people of color, people of different backgrounds and races, and make sure that if we're going to serve this community, live and work in this community, that we look like the community that we serve. So yes, it's important this year because of everything that's gone on in 2020 and the recent highlights, trying to improve everyone. But also it's important for us as PYP to make sure that we are stepping out to do what we need to do to make sure that everyone is welcome, and that we're being equal and being diverse with who we have in our organization. It starts with us.
Absolutely. And I will say that also a recognition, especially as you bring up the people that were at Graffiti Bridge, is something I've said, and every time I've been talking about this data, is that no one should think, and certainly anyone at PYP doesn't think, that us doing this data is something like, oh, there's an issue that we found. Absolutely not. And it's important to recognize the work of those who have been on the ground fighting this cause much longer than a lot of us have. And so it's really important, I think, to recognize that there's a lot of grassroots efforts, and these hard conversations have been bravely undertaken by people long before this. And those are the type of people, anything that PYP or any community organization is going to do, it's important that you look into who those groups are. And it just takes a simple Google search. They're not hidden. And so it's recognizing all the different social justice groups we've already had existing here. And those are the type of people we're going to be bringing in when we have a conversation about it. as PYP with our race relations discussion is recognizing that work that's already come before us and how do we serve as allies to that. We are not the ones that necessarily should be leading this. We need to be allies to those who already have been. And that's
Absolutely.
the critical piece of it for us.
Yes.
So, Kyle or Kevin, how about y'all? Was there anything you guys thought, especially about why it was important that we hadn't already mentioned?
No, it's like Ebony said, with so much going on in 2020, this has definitely been a conversation that's become at the forefront, and it's long overdue. I mean, I hate that the circumstances present themselves in such a way that this is what it took for us to be talking about this and for it to gain more spotlight and for people to really take a close look at their communities and examine what is going on and learn more and stop and listen instead of just trying to solve the issue, without consulting people who live with us every single day. So I think having this be a special focus on this in this year's quality of life survey, I mean, it gives you those data points that Meg was talking to, because a lot of times people are like, okay, well, that's anecdotal, but where's the data? I mean, here's the data. I mean, it's looking at us right in the face. We know what people are saying about it. We've got to do something about it. And we need to have something to be able to measure ourselves against, to be like, we are making progress or we're not making progress, And so I'm excited. And just like you said, Ebony, as well, I mean, we at PYP need to represent our community better, and be more diverse, and be able to serve all members or all young professionals that live within the greater Pensacola area. And so I'm excited to be a part of this changing movement.
Awesome.
PYP is a grassroots organization. I mean, that's how I see it. And if I just bring up this topic, it just puts sheds more light on it. That's really good, but if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. So it's great that Quinn Studer and PYP are doing this.
Absolutely. And I think it also, at least personally, as we were kind of referencing earlier with all of our race relation questions, is that there was a stark contrast between how white respondents answered it versus Black respondents. And that really woke me up to go consider looking at, again, the other questions we ask. And though when we're creating a summary report, we can't break down every single demographics for every single question. But for the questions that mattered the most to me, like the affordable housing and how we work for things like crime and what are the most important issues, I went back and looked at it by income and race and that kind of thing. And you saw that there were some, even on a couple of them, I think it was performance of city council, how men and women answered it was starkly different. And so that was all of the questions you could see very stark differences in intensity of how people felt based off different backgrounds. And so I think just by asking it really woke me up to making sure, considering of course, I've known you have to serve quality of life for everyone, but it really brought that point home, as if we're not including everyone and considering all the different ways that this is broken down, then we might be improving quality of life for one small portion of the population that looks like us, instead of works for everyone. All right, so my last question for you all tonight is, what do you believe is the individual actions young professionals or any community member can take to improve this data? We've kind of hit on that a little bit tonight, talking about just the idea of simply having those conversations, but what are those kind of first steps to improving some of these really vital points that we've all seen are either plateauing or not improving?
For me, it would be just to learn more. If there's something that stood out to you, learn more about that issue, learn more about that subject, and then figure out who is working locally to solve that and get involved. Because we can have conversations, all day, and that's great for figuring out where to start. But, get education, be a part of conversations, and then find out what organizations are doing something about it and get involved and make sure that you're at the table to contribute.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
Yeah, I agree, Kyle. There's a lot of data in here, and if you can't find something that you're passionate about in quality of life survey, congratulations. I would love to live in your world where everything is just fine and rosy. I think that when people ask me what they can do, I always say show up. Go, just show up. To show up and ask how you can help. Show up and be a helping hand. And as Kyle said, learn more, show up, learn more, figure out how you can help, and then activate on that. Make sure that what you're doing is being helpful and not harmful, and ask the hard questions. It's not easy work. I said it earlier, it's not easy work. But a lot of us are really passionate about it, and we're happy to bring you along with us. So
yes. And just like Kyle and Meg said, and like Claire said earlier, we want to make sure we're collaborating with those who are already working on these avenues, already doing the work, and really just getting in and supporting them, while we are continuing to be a catalyst for positive change in our community.
All right, so we now can take questions if anyone's out there watching and has questions for us about things you want to know in the data, or what we think about the data. We are welcome to that. And while we wait to see if anyone has any questions, I do want to highlight a couple different resources that we encourage you to look into. So part of this, like I said, is we want to be able to move forward with this. And so we've highlighted some national resources for change that are working on these types of issues. This is in addition to groups, like I said, we mentioned a little earlier, groups like the Dream Defenders, the AIM group. There are lots of different local grassroots organizations. But if you want to go even bigger, there are a couple different racial equity tools that are focused on making changes at county level. One of the ones I really encourage people to look at is this, it's called GARE, the Government Alliance on Racial Equity. And this is a fantastic toolkit that highlights different cities around the country that have focused on racial equity, and gives you literally a toolkit of this is how Madison, Wisconsin tackled their race issues. And it starts with things like task forces on racial equity and that kind of thing. So it gives you really concrete steps on how to tackle those issues. And so we've highlighted resources for change concerning the race issues, because that was kind of the issue. Of course, like I said, PYP added on this year, but there are different types of toolkits and ways to make change in our community on almost all these questions that we mentioned. As Meg said, there's almost always going to be something you can find in here, we hope, that you find a passion about. And so dive deeper into looking on the resources out there, or how other communities have improved the public school systems, as Kevin was mentioning earlier, as being a concern, or affordable housing, and find those toolkits and find what other communities have done to improve their outcomes in that area, and then figure out who to get involved with locally to make those same type of changes. And Pensacola Young Professionals is always here to support that type of work. Even if you're not a young professional, feel free to reach out to us and kind of find out more about what we're doing about it, or what connections our members might have, or to get connected to other young professionals that might care about it. And on top of that, myself, our Quality of Life team, we're always happy to come speak to your organization about this data. We can, tailor the presentation, like I said, into deeper onto whatever your issues are, be it economics, education, and that kind of thing, and are happy to present it to your group to give you those resources as well, arm you with that data so that your organization can make change. Pensacola Young Professionals is proud to have been given this honor by Quentin Studer to bring this data to the community. But when we mean that, we mean that we actually want to bring it to the community. We don't want to be the only ones talking about this or using this data. It's welcome and free for anyone to share. So please reach out to us, and we're happy to coordinate with you all and make sure that's available to you. All right, we have, let's see, we're looking at if we have any questions right now. It looks like we have one. What's the panel's thoughts and ideas for attracting young talent and keeping it in Pensacola? And that is from Walker on Facebook. So any thoughts there?
Well, I came from I was stationed in San Diego, California for a while. And if you juxtapose San Diego to Pensacola, there's one big difference, and it's industry. If you look at the industries, we have San Diego is this huge defense contractor industry over there, as well as technology hub, and with the what you call it, Navy Federal, when they added Navy Federal to Pensacola, it changed the landscape. I mean, it literally did. If you just go past Pine Forest on 9 Mile, it's a complete change out there. So when you want to attract young people, well, you want to make it enticing. They have to have jobs, viable jobs. So that's one thing economically we can vie for is jobs and economic stability for young people, because we have the natural assets and things to do. Just go to the beach for 15 minutes and you see how much fun you can have in the water, outside the water, and just with the natural beauty of Pensacola. It's a wonderful place that we live. So if we have more money, more jobs, people will come.
Absolutely. And in the I think it also applies to the nonprofit world. I might be biased, but in the nonprofit world, I think it can be, there's always concerns for fundraising and that kind of thing. And it makes it hard for a young professional with a passion for nonprofit. It might not be viable, unfortunately, to stay in that nonprofit realm in Pensacola. And so the need to support our nonprofits locally, make sure that they are well funded, because there's always going to be need in our community for things like Gulf Coast Kids House, or feeding the Gulf Coast and Healthy Start. And so by funding those nonprofits, I think we bring in making sure that they can support the young professionals and the young talent that wants to serve their community, because I don't know a single person that works for a nonprofit that doesn't also serve some other nonprofit in a volunteer mannerism. I think it's just something that gets ingrained in you. And so we can really, I think, retain talent by also supporting that side of it, in addition to that business side, and thinking about jobs more holistically that way.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I mean, a lot of times it's the job that brings you to a community, but it's the community that keeps you there. So it's not only getting people here through available jobs, it's keeping them here, making sure that we're a community that they feel like they can be a part of, that they feel like they're represented, that they feel like they have a voice and a place. So, and I think organizations like PYP do such a great job of, enabling people to find how they could plug in and be a bigger part of the community, and how to figure out how to get a seat at the table so they're part of decisions and feel like they're really belonging to the community and making a difference.
Yeah, and I can speak to a little bit as you're coming out of your young professional days, and you're in the position to hire. Take a chance on young professionals that may not have all of that experience, that have, the education, who have been involved in the community, and just hire our young talent and keep it here. And then give them a good paying job and give them the benefits that they need to make them want to stay. Because if you can't sustain your life, it doesn't matter how good our amenities are in the area, they're not going to stay if they can't sustain a good the lifestyle that they want. So absolutely, as we're getting older and we're in positions, hire young talent.
Yes, my answer is very similar to everyone else's. To hire young talent, keep the job market open. Many young professionals, because they're young, we don't come with a lot of experience up front, but giving us that opportunity to gain experience, letting us show you that we can do it. Many people in our generation are very quick learners, and we're wanting to put our best foot forward. We want to go somewhere with our careers. We're more educated, as I stated earlier. We are joining organizations such as Pensacola Young Professionals to do all we can to get plugged in. And sometimes all we need is just for some organization or employer to step out and give us a chance, take a chance on us, so that we can in turn show them, why you would be grateful you did consider me and hire me and give me a chance. And I know, a lot of larger cities, that's what they do. That's how they keep, attract their young talent and keep them there, giving them a position and also giving them an organization where they can grow and learn and advance inside of that company.
Yeah, and just as you guys were talking, I also thought it was on top of mind. supporting our teenagers and our, thinking of the young, not even professionals yet. There are organizations, Boys and Girls Club, Chain Reaction, that are providing teenagers opportunities to understand how to be a young professional and how to do college and do adulting, so to speak. I think it's also critical we think about making sure we reach that population as well, because if they feel the community's investing with them at that age, they're more likely to, they might go away for college for a few years, but if they remember that Pensacola treated them well in high school and that it wasn't just, oh my God, I want to get out of here, they're going to be more likely to take those opportunities to come back here and invest in their community. And so I think sometimes the conversation, we get stuck on our age, young professionals, but thinking of who we were before that and how we can cultivate that age as well is important too.
Yes, Claire, I'm a living example of that. I was involved in not only school organizations, but community organizations. And that kind of, I went away to college. It was only Mobile, Alabama, University of South Alabama. But because of the connections and resources I already had here, when it was time for me to graduate and choose a graduate school, of course, I'm going to, consider UWF to go back to the community that did give me those resources and opportunity to grow at such a young age.
Yeah, no, I was in Chain Reaction in high school, and I have stumbled upon professional contacts. Like, I knew you in high school, and it's those type of it's like, oh gosh, but I was making professional connections with them in high school through those mentorship opportunities, and those can stick with you and be really important.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, that is it. It looks like for us tonight, like I said, feel free to email us or contact us via our website, like at PensacolaYP.com. We're more than happy for put you in contact with any panelists who have any thought that you want to talk to further with their organizations or to learn more about how to get involved with PYP or our survey. We are more than welcome to always keep that door open. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, panelists, so much for giving us your time tonight and helping kind of move this conversation forward. So we hope to see you at our next event, March 15th, where we'll be talking to members of the community about affordable housing and really how can we affect that aspect of quality of life. So thank you all.
Thank you for having us, Claire.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks, everyone.